I'll ask you just to if you can make him join, so he'll join on the public link and you can upgrade him, you said?
Correct. Yeah. So once he joins, let me know and I'll get him on here.
Thank you.
So NHC members, have we all looked over the minutes from 7/22/20?
Yes,
And do we approve of them?
I make a motion to approve the minutes of the 7/22 meeting.
Let's see, do I have hands? I wish I could get you guys all lined up.
Need a second, Dana?
Okay,
Okay.
so
A lot of, you want us on mute or off mute? Because there's a lot of people that are muted.
I guess we need NHC members unmuted now.
Okay, yeah, I see that you're,
So Liz,
Liz got to unmute.
there's Mark,
Okay,
Barry's unmuted. Hi, Barry.
How are you?
Good. And we did that. Next item, number 3, is public participation. I don't know what we have for that right now.
I don't see anyone.
Okay. Then it's on to reports, boards, and Norwalk Historical Society, Diane Jelleret is next. And you can unmute yourself.
I did. Hi, everybody. It's been a while since we've all got together. And we are all still here. We survived 2020. And we learned to go virtual very, very quickly. About this time last year was the last time we had an in-person event. And then we figured out how to go virtual. And we probably had about 7 virtual events in 2020. So just to give you a little catch up of what was going on. And that included turning our Haunting at Mill Hill into a movie, into a virtual movie. And everybody appreciated that in November.
it was wonderful.
It was great.
So
It was great.
yeah, we had no design to do this until this happened. And it's amazing what you can do, right? In a short period of time. So I don't want to spend any time on 2020. We've moved forward to 2021. But what did get started in at the museum, the Historical Society Museum, is actually putting in the elevator. I don't know if a lot of you know that. So the elevator project started in the fall, and it's been going really smoothly. So we're very pleased with what's happening. So the elevator is going from the basement first floor to the second floor, so that more people can access the exhibits when we're open. We're also putting in a new kitchen at the same time. So, it's been a little over 5 years since we opened the museum. So we're very happy that this is moving forward in between everything. So that's what's big that's been happening. We've only been accepting people to come into the museum by appointment because it's producing a lot of dust in the museum. So we're going to have to do a deep clean when we're all done with the elevator project. So starting with this year, our events are starting again. And right now we're kind of anticipating that most of it will be virtual until, such time that we feel comfortable. And when we reopen the museum again, we'll be doing time tickets. They'll be socially distanced. We're already ready and we're prepared to do that. So what's coming up? So we did have one event already in January, but what's coming up this month is becoming very popular is the Black History Month event, honoring the silent, documenting African American and Native American history in Connecticut. So we have 2 speakers that will be virtual. On the talk is going to be February 18th. That's a Thursday at 5:30. Right now, it's like we're getting a lot of interest, and not just within, it's not Norwalk, it's all over. One thing about going virtual is that people, as long as you have an internet connection, people are able to dial in. So we're finding that is a plus for doing it virtually. And then next month, we're actually having someone who's written about oystering in Norwalk. That is a brand new photography book for someone who used to live here, Bill Woodback. So in the 1970s and the early 80s, he had a photography studio in Norwalk, and he photographed every aspect of oystering and has now written a photography book, and he will be talking about that on March 2nd. And we're actually doing another event in March 25th to talk about witches in New England. So we think that will be kind of interesting. So we are preparing again to assume that everything's might be virtual, including the Little Red Schoolhouse program. Most of you know that's our third grade program that usually the third grade come to visit Mill Hill. So again, we have pivoted. So last year, pandemic happened and our lockdown March, when we normally have our Little Red Schoolhouse, and we did interactive tours. Virtual tours in the schoolhouse. So that kind of worked out. So we're going to be offering that again to the schools. And the teachers are quite excited because it kind of breaks up, some of the stuff that they're doing. And we're also looking at creating videos, short videos on the history of Norwalk. So that's going to be coming up. And we're also starting to work on our exhibit that we kind of put on hold because of the pandemic last year, Norwalk Changing Communities Before 1835. And some of you have been involved with that. So we're going to be moving ahead with doing that. And we have received a $35,000 grant from Connecticut Humanities in order to do that. So that's what's going to be happening. And some of you have already seen an e-blast and stuff on Facebook about the jail, and we're looking for artifacts. So that's looking like that's scheduling for next year sometime. And we're still working on the jail. But it's kind of exciting. There's lots and lots to do. And that's what's happening for now. Any questions?
I have one or two. Hi, Diane.
Hi.
There was that old list of all of the artifacts that they had found in the jail that have been lost or damaged by the fire. Do you have a list of those that maybe we can acquire artifacts that are similar to the ones that were documented in the jail? Isn't that list around, David?
I have not seen that list, but the person who's curating is Darren.
Okay.
She might, David, you might know, but I'll ask her. She's the curator of and she's done a lot of research, so I'll ask her what she has.
Yeah, ask her, because I remember it was Ernie's group that did that.
Yeah, a long time ago, right?
If maybe he has a copy.
Yeah, so I'll ask Darren. Darren has done tons of research, so she may have acquired a copy at this point.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay.
Yep.
Hey, anyone else? Thank you, Diane. And next point of business, Lockwood Matthews Mansion. I guess, Patsy, are you?
Yeah, I'm going to be representing us tonight.
Okay.
Susan Gilgar was not able to be with us. We are in, well, let me back up. I've been with the mansion for, I think now 22 years. And we are currently in an amazing position of what's going on, and a very important thing for the city of Norwalk. And that is this construction project that the trustees instigated in 2008 by doing a deep study on the mechanical needs and upgrades of the building in order to have it be a venue, a year-round venue with heat on and lights on the second floor and third floors, and not having to be shut down during the winter because our staff has to wear coats in order to work in the building. So we're in the middle of that now, big time. We are under contract with David Scott Parker Architects out of Southport. They're in about ready to move into design and development stage. It is currently a $7.5 million project. It's probably more like a $10 million project, which is what we articulated going into it. But so far we've raised money up to $7.5 million, $5 million from the state of Connecticut and $2.5 million commitment from the city. We expect to be under construction this time next year. It means moving out of the mansion for 2 years, shutting down our operations within the building and developing, creating, and constructing venues outside of our building, programs outside of our building. An amazing undertaking. I wake up in the middle of the night often wondering how we're going to make this all happen, but we are working very hard at it. So we're planning a full schedule for our 2020-21 season. We close, as I mentioned, January through April because of lack of heat in the building. But we have an amazing exhibit that is being created on the pandemic of a century ago. And the irony is that our executive director, Susan Gilgar, identified this a year and a half ago before we knew we were going to have a current pandemic. Really eerie. But it is, it has real depth and it's going to be outstanding. Our staff has created a video on the exhibit, which is being used for students in the Norwalk system. It just was finished this week. I'm going to ask Susan to send you all the links so that you can view it. It's amazing, incredibly timing, just amazingly so. So in addition, one of the wonderful things we had at the end of 2020 was that we were in the mix to be identified by the USA Today as one of the top 10 holiday exhibits in the country. And we came in number 5. We beat Newport and we beat Mount Vernon. We were number 5. So we put Norwalk on the map. It was a very exciting opportunity for us, and we're, but it just goes to show the significance and the importance of the Norwalk history, because it is, it goes back, so many years and has so many real stories to be told. And so all of us that comprehend that and work hard to articulate it and to bring it forward into the current day and to educate our kids as we move into the future to understand the challenges of our country and the wonderfulness of it and the need to preserve what we have created here in the United States of America. So we open in April with the exhibit. We have limited tours depending on whatever the COVID limits tell us what can happen. We're in the middle of solving all of the machinations of a construction project like this. We physically have to move out of the building. That means people, furniture, everything has to come out of the building for this to be accomplished. So anybody who has extra energy and wants to get involved, we're looking for more volunteers.
And when will that be needed? Those
Needed?
hands, yeah.
Well, creatively, we need it now. We are looking at options for space of how do we store our collections, how we store just our necessary things that aren't of value, but then are valuables. And we're breaking down of how we're going to move staff and how we're going to create virtual programming. The one interesting thing about the pandemic is that it got us all into what we're doing here tonight, which is now becoming the ordinary, not the extraordinary. So in a way that's helping us so that we're not going to be as challenged as we would have been without what has happened over the last year. We rather would have been the other way, but we're working on it. We have a lot of support from the state and we've reached out to national organizations to help us with planning and funding. So it's a major undertaking, and David Westmoreland is here. He knows what I'm talking about, right, David? Yeah, so
And I guess each object needs to be documented somehow.
everything has to be photographed, it has to be cataloged, it has to be wrapped, and right now we're trying to figure out volume of and categorize things that need one kind of storage versus other things that could be in a storage area where you don't need heat, or air conditioning versus humidity control objects, and working space for staff, and also potential other opportunities while we are shut down to reach out on a national level, probably to get federal grants to help us with our archive storage and articulation. We also this year accomplished a major thing for the museum, and that was a national cap. And I don't know if you're familiar with that process, but under national guidelines, there are two processes in order to reach out and get funding from IMLS to recognize us at the status that we need to be recognized at. And we accomplished the second phase this past year in 2020, where we had two assessors come from, one happened to be coincidentally from Connecticut and the other from Long Island, but they came and spent 2 days with us and did a 100-page report assessment and articulated ways in which we can protect and preserve our collection, and the building itself is so much a part of the collection itself. And that's a 100-page report, which we received at the end of the year. And that process, we believe, opens doors on a national level to reach out for funding for any of these steps that we want to take in the next few years. So a lot on our plate. We're working hard.
Great.
And actually, we might want to do a presentation to your board in the next few months to have our architects do a virtual presentation of what's actually happening. They have to take up floorboards in order to get into the floor below. This is going to be heat, lights, fire preservation, which has never been in the building before. And it's all mechanical. It is not cosmetic or restoration. It's mechanical. So it's very complicated. But it's going to open all kinds of opportunities in the future.
Okay. Thank you, Patsy. And our next business is reports on buildings. Do we have a report on buildings?
Uh, Good evening, everyone. My name is David Westmoreland. There's some new commissioners that I haven't met yet and a number of other people. So welcome to the commission and thank you for volunteering. I was on this historical commission since 2009 until last year when the mayor asked me to go on the redevelopment agency, which I'm currently a commissioner. But I still retain the title of the unpaid staff person for the historical commission. And so I still do a fair amount of work for the historical commission, and that's why I'm here today. I do oversee all the buildings and all of the budgeting and those types of things. So on the budget, I mean, on the buildings, I'll go fairly quickly. Diane already talked about the elevator project. That's going well. We're also working with the DOT. One of their projects, and I'll stress, one of the mitigation projects they agreed to do of probably $40–50 million of mitigation for the Walk Bridge project is to restore the original fence along West Avenue for the Lockwood Matthews Mansion. As you may have seen, if you haven't noticed or haven't driven by, but drive by the mansion on West Avenue, they've installed, we had to replicate the granite curbing that the wrought iron fence sits on top of. They've moved the columns or the posts that are made out of granite, the original ones, back to their original locations. It looks really, really good. They're doing a terrific job. We're a bit delayed on the wrought iron because of the paint. We decided to powder coat the wrought iron instead of just using regular paint. To match the powder coat to historic colors requires a special paint mix by the powder coat people in California. That sample apparently was just received today, and I'm gonna look at it tomorrow. Hopefully the fence will be done, long and short of it. Hopefully, possibly by the end of this month, but likely the end of March. So that's moving on, and that it's about a $3 million project is being paid for by the DOT. We're also hopefully getting close on the production of the interpretive signage for Matthews Park, like we've done in all of the cemeteries and at Mill Hill. That's I think 4 of the signs are in production, and there's 2 more of the design are being finalized. So that will all get installed this year. The other big thing related to buildings that we've started, the redevelopment agency is, and the historical commission is jointly funding a new master plan for Matthews Park. The redevelopment agency is paying for most of it, but the historical commission agreed to kick in $10,000. That effort kicked off. We've chosen a vendor, Heritage Resources, which is Heritage Landscapes, which is one of the leading landscape architecture firm in the world on historic and cultural landscapes. So they'll be helping us redesign Matthews Park, particularly looking at parking and pedestrian flow and things like that, as well as hopefully restoring some of the original landscape elements from the 1876 plan to make it look like the historic park that it is. That effort, Dana is on the committee. I'm on the committee from the redevelopment agency, and then all of the executive directors of the various the 5 institutions that are in the park are also on the committee. So that we just had our first meeting last week and chose the vendor, second meeting, I guess. So that's moving forward. On the capital budget front, I'll just be brief for buildings. We submitted request of $550,000 of capital improvements. The finance director's recommendations just came out. They cut that to $255,000. Not surprisingly, I was hoping for our top 3 requests. Strangely, our number 1 priority, the jail restoration, we'd requested $150,000. He's recommended $25,000. So that will slow down the restoration of the jail at least another year if that money doesn't get put back. We'd asked for $180,000 for projects in Matthews Park. Some of that is for moving expenses to relocate the mansion people for the 2 years. Also to begin work on a master plan for the restoration of the carriage house and putting in an elevator, and some additional work to finish the restoration of the veranda on the mansion. And then the third item, which he did recommend, was $50,000 to do the next phase of redesigning the parking lot and the sidewalks and replacing the front steps at Mill Hill Historic Park. So those three were recommended, and the rest was left off, which is fine. I mean, the stuff that's lower down, 110,000 for Pine Island. We'll get to that sooner or later. It's not really a burning issue, but that's moving forward. And that's pretty much it on buildings. Any questions?
I just have a comment on the fencing, the first part. Interesting for history buffs is that the fencing actually belonged to the museum, Matthews Park, Lockwood Matthews, and we gifted it to the city. And that took like 6 months to give it to the city so that it was city owned and not owned by us. It had been stored in our basement for decades, and we were delighted to see it leave, but it's just sort of how the process works.
Well, and I have to add to that. And the reason why the mansion owned it is because the city.
I wasn't going there.
We won't name names, but the city sold the wrought iron fencing for $500 years ago in a tag sale. And fortunately, the head of the mansion at the time bought it and then gave it back to the mansion. So anyway, here we are. I'll stop on that.
All right. Thank you, David. Cemeteries, Ms. Kazone, anything?
I'm not aware of anything, but I'm sure after the snow, we're gonna need some repairs somewhere along the line. David, did you line up any scouts for the springtime?
No, I haven't come up with anybody yet, but they usually don't get desperate until the spring. So we'll hear from somebody.
I've got a whole school that'll be willing to do some community service.
Excellent. We'll take you up on that.
All right, thanks, Holly. Report C is finance. Do we have? We actually don't have anyone doing finance, but is that
Well,
David again?
I guess it's defaulted to me. I have already covered the capital budget. I actually don't know. I haven't had any feedback on the operating budget. I don't anticipate any change there. So I'm sure that will be fine. I mean, our budget is next to nothing anyway. So.
Okay, thanks again.
Mhm.
Next is old business. Anything? Lisa's laughing. Okay, there's no old business, and next is new business. So if we're ready for Viking Construction 3 East Wall Street project.
Yeah, good evening. My name's Craig Flaherty. I'm a principal and senior engineer with Redness and Mead, a land use consulting company with offices in Stamford and Wilton. I'll be kind of the MC for our team tonight, but you're going to hear from a lot of folks whom I'll introduce. So thank you for having us tonight. The joke in my mind was, isn't all of your business old business?
Oh,
Very old business. Very old business.
That's pretty good.
If only we were actually at your normal digs, we could have gone on a site visit, because this is in fact about the property immediately across the street at 3 East Wall, known as, it's got a sign out front, it says Wall Street Manor, but it's also the Morgan Lockwood home. If you don't mind, I'm going to try to share my screen here so we can go through the presentation. Yep, it looks like I'm able to do that relatively easily. The team should be somewhat familiar to you. We were here a couple of years ago for a very similar request in a very similar set of circumstances. And I'll show you that to remind some of the folks that were here a couple of years ago, but also familiarize maybe some of the folks that are new to the committee. But the owner of 3 East Wall Street is Anthony Gaglio Sr. and Anthony Gaglio Jr. on Called Night, also known as Viking Construction. Our project architect you will hear from tonight, Ken Borison. And we've been consulting with Todd Bryant of Heritage Resources on the history of the home and the property. And he's been informing a lot of Ken's work in terms of the rehabilitation that's proposed for the building. So those are the folks you're going to hear from tonight. I don't think our landscape architect's with us or is our project attorney. But on the left side of the screen, you kind of get the quick preview of where we're headed with this. But the first set of photos that I'm going to show you are actually not this property, but another property that the Gaglios purchased a few years ago and renovated using much the same approach that we would like to use here at 3 East Wall Street. Basically, we proposed historic preservation incentive regulation that was adopted into the zoning regulations that allowed for a property owner to apply to the zoning board for bonus density, in effect, so that they could build some new units on the site in the back of the historic structure that would basically provide the revenue and finances to restore the structure in the front. So this that you're looking at right now is actually 3 Elmcrest Terrace. It's over by the hospital. This was what it looked like when the Gaglios purchased it. And this is a real photo of what it looks like today. So they put a substantial amount of money in a very thorough renovation and worked very carefully to honor its history and create what I think is a beautiful jewel. If you haven't been up 3 Elmcrest Terrace, you might want to put that in your travels to go by and take a look. What you can just barely see, I don't have a better photo on this deck right now, is the infill development in the back. There is a 4-story building that goes out from the back of this, which housed, I think, 15 apartments. And that became the economic driver to get this done and to save the jewel at the front. And so basically, that's the same system or process we would like to replicate here at 3 East Wall Street. We're proposing a similar zoning regulation change that would allow this type of historic preservation incentive development to happen in the East Avenue Village District. But it all starts really with the history of the property and the home. And with that, I will introduce Todd to kind of take you through what he's learned about the property and give you that story.
Okay. So are you going to run this show?
I'll just say forward or go ahead or next page.
Okay, next slide then. So this was as many of you may know, this house was built by a Mr. Morgan in about sometime around 1870. Really, this says 1880, but it's around 1870. And it's a Second Empire house. He was married to Manister Forrest Lockwood Sr.'s sister. And when she died in roughly 1880, the house was acquired by Manister Forrest Lockwood Sr., and he made some substantial changes to it. Morgan, who by sheer chance, I happen to live on Morgan Avenue, which is named after him because it was owned by one of the Lockwoods. He made some substantial changes to the house. Next slide, please. So he changed it to look like it does today. He added the porte cochere. He added that second story, this second story element here, because he had a disabled son, George. And the idea was that George would be able to stay in his room and have a wonderful view of Norwalk, something that was not available to him the way the house was built originally. And you can also see in this image that it wasn't painted the way that it's painted today. The way it's painted today, it's a victim of you know, a landlord and the colonial revival. These paint schemes that you see on here were far more typical of the Victorian era, the end of the 19th century. That's something that the Gaglios are proposing to recreate, is the color scheme that would have been, and we don't know what it looked like. No one alive today can tell you what it looked like, but we have, and we'll get there. So next slide, please. This is another slide from, you know, circa 1880, 1900. Again, you can see the way the paint schemes are very different, much more elaborate than they are today. Next slide, please. So this one we can date. This is 1901. This was the 250th anniversary of Norwalk. It was a huge deal. It was a week-long celebration with speeches and dinners and parades and all these buntings. When I first showed this to Anthony Gaglio Sr., he said, "My God, we're going to have to get more bunting." So that's kind of the way they're approaching this project. But it looks, you know, the body of the house, with the exception of the bunting and the paint and the shutters, it's essentially the same. If you look out the, you know, if you were at Mill Hill and looked out the window, this is more or less what you would see. One of the things that you see here very clearly that is missing is this balustrade on the roof of the second floor addition that mimics the balustrade on the first floor on the porch. And they are proposing to replace that. And it's been gone. No one knows how long it's gone. It's been gone. And I have to credit the history room of the Norwalk Library with Ralph and everyone else there for helping us in this research and providing these images. So next image, please.
You want to mention George?
Oh yeah, well here's George. Right, I'm sorry. Here's George. This is the guy for whom this was built. So the other thing that we have here is in behind the house is a stable, sometimes called the carriage house, which originally looked like this. Now, in my research, I was surprised to discover that in the 1986 National Register nomination for the Norwalk Green Historic District, this building is not even mentioned in its current form. It's not mentioned as contributing. It's not mentioned as non-contributing. And that is despite the fact that there are 8 other carriage houses and garages in that district that are mentioned and are designated either contributing or non-contributing. This is what it used to look like. Let me have another slide, please. With these wonderful medallions on the doors. I mean, it just looks great. The next slide shows you what it looks like now. And this is why they didn't even bother to mention it in 1986. I'm amazed that they didn't at least make it non-contributing, but it was not even mentioned in the nomination. Next slide, please. So in terms of the color, I've identified 4 books that can give us some guidance as to how to paint a house. I mean, we can try to do a low level, attempt to find to look for what the original color was. If that's not successful, we have this. This was written by Rossiter and Wright in 1885, so it is absolutely contemporary with the time that the house was built. And they go on for about 3 paragraphs about how much they hate white. So chances, so chances are it didn't look like it looks now. So next slide, please. This is another one. This is a combination. This is kind of an anthology of color plates from the Scientific American Architects and Building edition between 1885 and 1894. So these two are absolutely contemporary color schemes. Next slide, please. This is a current book, but it's extremely detailed. It talks. They talk a lot about not only the color schemes, but about the rationale behind them, and how how people got to this point in color. One more, please. And then this one, Paint in America, which has published some time ago by the National Trust for Historic Preservation. I was shocked to see what these things are going for these days. I've had this for a while on Amazon. It has a section at the beginning about the paint in Victorian homes, and then it goes into more technical details about the evolution of paint from the 17th century to the 20th century. But it's also a very useful source. So that's pretty much what we have. We have an existing house, which is very close to the way it was in 1901. We have a carriage house, which has been brutally disfigured, and a developer who wants to bring this back to the way it looked in the late 19th, early 20th century. So thank you very much. And I'm going to pass this on to whoever comes next.
Hey, Todd.
Yeah.
This is David Westmoreland.
Yeah.
So why don't you just hire Jablonski or BCA to do a paint analysis to determine the colors?
You'll have to ask Anthony about that.
We talked about that. Todd had suggested that months ago. And we worked with our historic architect. And to be honest with you, we haven't set the colors. We even discussed if the board wanted to have some input on the colors. And we would pick, 4 colors that worked in that period that really gave, really gave it the protection that it needs, but the color and the depth that it needs. So when Ken, our architect, speaks, take a look at the colors in generality. Nothing is cast in stone. But if that's the next step to hire that consultant, it's not the worst thing in the world. We could try to determine what basis, where we were in that period of time.
Yeah.
We've used them at the mansion quite often, Jablonski, and they've been outstanding, very helpful.
We used a different kind, John Canning.
We've used him too out of New Haven. Yeah.
I did the historic.
Nobody better than Ken.
Well, I did the historic rehab at the Herald Security in the Wheeler Building in Bridgeport for Spinnaker. And we did all the Scagliola, and we did all the replication of the interior lobby. It's an 8-story atrium to a beautiful skylight up on the roof. But that's the one item we didn't finalize a decision yet, because we thought there would be some discussions about it.
That's great. Thank you. I mean, I think we normally, I try not to be just crazy about colors on private developments and such, but this is such an important location. I think it's really important.
We got to get it right.
Pay attention to. Yeah.
We really got to, Elmcrest is a little bit off the beaten path. This is right out in front. And this should be one of the nicest looking painted ladies that we have in Norwalk.
Right. And but it needs to reflect the real history, if at all possible.
Yep. Agreed.
Unless it's
Are there
purple.
now about 11 apartments in this building?
Yes.
Yeah, I've been in it maybe 15, 20 years ago. And that's
Oh,
was my
wait.
recollection.
Way before I bought
Yeah, yeah. I've been around a long time.
it.
And that's for the whole complex, 11 apartments.
Yeah, we'll get in, so there's a little more presentation and
Okay.
we'll cover some of that. But the proposal, one of the apartments in the front building comes out, and then we add, what's
15.
blanking on the number in the back, we're doing
Just
two floors of 6,
15
right?
to the back.
Okay, yep. So Anthony, do you want to walk them through some of your restoration?
So the manor house that we talked about and Craig alluded to, there's an appendage on the back of the house, a small 1-bedroom apartment. It's actually a studio that comes off. It has no, it's actually a shed to the back of the building. So, but to the facade of the manor house, new windows. It's got older single pane with storms and weights, and they just don't work. And we've really got a lot of rotted trim around the windows. The cornice and the brackets, soffits are rotted, and we've looked at the cornice work and to try to replicate the cornice. So we've actually had one of our vendors take a look at taking molds of not only the cornice, but, oh, there you go. Okay. You can see the cornice is the only thing really holding that together is the paint. And we found it's either fiberglass or a polystyrene product like a Fipon that can make a mold of that and make a replication of it, as well as the balustrade. The big number here is the balustrade and the railing on the porch. Matter of fact, I brought one of our balustrades, and this is a sample of what we've started to research. AJ in my office has been spending the last month and a half on researching the balustrades, and I believe there's 176 of them because we're also going to replace them on the top of the turret. You can see the railing has multiple shapes. We've got proposals from several vendors that can replicate the railing, replicate the columns in a structural column to match the existing. So we're basically going to take the front porch apart and put it back together so it lasts 25 years. If you look at the slate, we have investigated a synthetic product, but we also found Vermont slate that came pretty identical to what we have there. Other than the shapes, we'd have to remake some of the shapes there, but we can replicate those. So our plan was to take the slate off, try to salvage as much as we can and reuse it with supplemental slate. I don't believe that the synthetic will be as appealing after the samples that I've seen. So I think we're really leaning towards replace it with real slate. The corners and the flashings will be redone out of copper. The Yankee gutters will be relined and reworked. The metal, Todd, what did you call them?
Oh,
They're
the
not-
cresting.
Cresting. Will all be taken off, sandblasted, repainted, repaired, and replaced. All the siding has got to come off. We're going to go back with a custom color of a hardy plank siding that'll match the clapboard exactly. The ornate trim around the front door, the carvings, and there's a vestibule off to a side apartment is going to have to be stripped and placed and repainted. The flat roof up top has got to get replaced. That's the worst part of it. It leaks pretty bad. It leaks through the mansard. It leaks through the windows at the turret. She needs a lot of work, and it every winter it gets beat up a little more. So our proposal is to remove the carriage house in the back and put up a building on stilts like the project we did over on 3 Elmcrest, and replicate the exterior envelope of the building so it'll last 25 years without having to have any serious maintenance to it. And to do that, we were asking for your support because we're going to be going to zoning for the incentive that the developers really need to salvage these properties.
Thank you, Anthony. Next up in our presentation is our project architect, Ken Borison, who will take you through hopefully what it's going to look like when we're done.
Great. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Great. Okay, I'm Ken Borson, Kenneth Borson Architects. We're excited about this project and have worked with Viking for a long time. Next slide, Craig.
Sure.
Or keep going. Yeah. So and this was our first attempt of coming up with the colors on the main house. It's not supposed to be as white as it might look like on the screen, more off-white and dark green and sort of yellowish khaki. And but again, as Todd mentioned and Anthony mentioned, this is just the beginning. We want to get these colors right. You can see the balustrade that Todd was referring to on the second floor of the octagon. And so we're adding that. It's not there now. Next slide. So the carriage house, which Todd talked about, we evaluated the condition of the existing carriage house, coordination with Todd's research. Todd determined that this ancillary structure has lost much of its architectural integrity, and that it was not included as a contributing asset in the Norwalk Green Historic District, and its loss would not harm the integrity of the district. Given that finding and the poor condition of the building, we're recommending removing it and the small apartment that Anthony mentioned on the back of the existing to make room for the new building. So the next slide. So here's kind of a view from the street, maybe across the street. The building, as you can sort of see in the background, is kind of, it mirrors it a little bit. It's designed to be complementary. It tips its hat to the manor house. The new apartment building uses a hip gambrel form at the upper level to soften the scale and not have it overpower the manor house. Creates a dialogue with the original house. Cues are derived from the manor house, such as, but not limited to, the slope of the mansard portion of the new roof and the dormer configurations. There's a roof deck behind, I guess we could go to the next slide.
Ken, I want to interrupt for just a second.
Sure.
So come back to that last slide. This, I made sure that that when we were out there looking at the site, that we stood in the section, the section of lawn between Mill Hill, between the townhouse and the cemetery, because that's where so many events are held. So this is what you would see from that little piece of lawn. So it's almost identical to what you see today.
Actually,
Go ahead.
you're right. We were outside the door in that little courtyard area, not courtyard area, but you had pointed out, and that's where we took that picture from. I remember months ago.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, because it's an important. That view is important because of the events that take place there.
Okay, great. Thank you, Todd. And then there's a roof deck. Yeah, the tree is obviously there, but we want to show you what the building looks like. There's a roof deck that's hidden behind the shallower pitch. It also hides mechanical units and cementitious siding. And trim materials will be used for the exterior walls, energy efficient windows, similar style to the windows of the original house. The roofing in this case will be asphalt shingles with a complementary color to the slate. Bay windows punctuate the long wall. And again, it kind of mimics some of the bays of the original house. Let's see. Care was taken to make sure the structure is complementary, deferred to the original structure. It's lower than the cresting on the original building. And the colors, as we talked about, the painted layout. I just became a grandfather for the first time. I think of the front house as the matriarch and the back house as the grandchild or the little more hip, cousin or something. The palette is cooler and softer and quieter, so it doesn't overtake the manor house. That's basically it.
Yeah, the height is.
There's some one other thing. There's some planters and lattice in the middle to hide any of the cars.
And what's the breakdown on the units and the composite of, studios, 1 bedrooms, whatever?
Yeah, the
They're all
new. You go
they're-
ahead.
Okay, the there's 1 2-bedroom in the manor house and everything else is studios and 1-bedrooms. And the rear building is all 1-bedrooms or a 1-bedroom den.
Right, the majority of them are 1-bedroom den, there's one 1-bedroom. So there's 14 one-bedroom
One
dens.
bedroom den has 1 bathroom, 2 bathrooms.
All 1 bathroom.
1 bathroom.
All 1 bathroom.
The 1-bedroom den is similar to what they did at Elmcrest, which ended up being incredibly fortuitous in this last year, as many folks used that den as their work from home space. They found the units to be very popular. And that's the same kind of format that's proposed here. We should also mention, although not necessarily related to historic, but along with our text amendment for the historic preservation, we're introducing a text amendment to expand the workforce housing regs, which currently don't apply in the East Avenue Village District, so that they do. So this project, which will be a total of 26 old and new units when done, will include 3 deed restricted affordable units in accordance with the city's workforce regs. Other considerations related to zoning was really a play between expanding coverage or expanding height. And after working with Steve Kleppen and a couple of members of the commission, we thought one of our original schemes was actually 4 stories and less of a footprint. They felt that wasn't appropriate both to the district or to how it respected the front building. And so we ended up sticking to 3 stories, really in a format that almost looks like 2.5, but needing a little more footprint to be able to do that, basically taking those units from above and spreading them out on the lower floors. And I think it was
economical,
successful.
Greg, and I don't know if they realize that, but I think after listening to the first part of the meeting, everybody's involved in some sort of a construction project. And they've all realized that the construction costs are getting out of hand. It's much more economical to build a smaller footprint than a taller building, because the steel framework, you can put 10 stories on top of it. So we, by making it short and stout, a little bigger, that required it to get that bigger footprint.
More roof and more foundation, which
Right.
equals more cost. Yeah.
And more steel.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is Eric. I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So the main structure, the existing slate tiles appear to be like at least 3 different shapes.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Your illustration, as far as I can tell, is showing just rectangular slates. So are you going to do that for just ease? Are you going to use a single shape for ease and cutting costs down? Or are you going to go with the original 3 or 4 shapes as on the original building?
We're going to match the shapes.
Okay.
Okay, because that's a big part of that facade. It's a little more expensive. The slate it has lost a few millimeters since, for being 200 years old.
Mhm.
It's not bad. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to try to salvage as much as I can, and I'm going to either weave in new slate with it and special shapes. The crop corners are not a problem, and we can make them work. Or I may salvage enough and do 2 of the beautiful facades, the piece side you see the moat, and then supplement with new material on the backside and weave it in as best we can. But we're going to
Okay,
follow.
that was really just a point of curiosity. That was not a hand on hips finger wag.
Okay.
We will change the rendering to make sure it shows the multiple shapes.
Great. Any other questions before moving on to probably the dry part?
I know what the at Cranberry Park, they were able to find the actual quarry where that slate came from. And sometimes they're still working.
I think we found it in Vermont.
Yeah.
The vein of material, they sent us some samples. Looks a lot better than this. That's why we really want to stay with the original material.
Yeah. No, it's great stuff. Yeah.
It lasts a couple hundred years.
Yeah, exactly.
So not that it
matters all that much, but just so you know, we are repainting the townhouse across the street in the spring, and we actually did paint analysis, and instead of the bright white, it's a very creamy white, very off-white, almost kind of yellow gray color. So that the bright white across the street on the tower and on all the trim is going to go away next year. But that's the original color, which I think is going to look good with the orange brick. The only other question I have is, so you're asking for some zoning changes for this project. Is any of the zoning changes or text amendments you're asking for, would those only apply to this property, or do they affect other properties around the city? Does it make any other property eligible?
Actually, that's the next part of the presentation.
Yep, excellent question. And let me just get up the answer to that question while we're talking.
If you remember, we addressed that when we also did the zone change or zone amendment for Elmcrest. We did an extensive study of the amount of properties in that zone that fit the same criteria. And Craig will talk about what we did here also.
Yep. Thanks, Anthony. So basically, this is the text. No one wants to read this on a Zoom call, but it just helps me run through what we're asking for. Again, it's modeled almost exactly like the prior amendment for the D-residence zone. This would apply to properties larger than 30,000 square feet that contained a structure listed in a state or national register of historic places or in a local historic resource inventory. We need to have a historic architect be working on it. We need to come to you for referral comments back to the zoning board. Then we also map out the kind of the specific limits and restrictions on the zoning. But in terms of what 5 properties means, we found these 5, now not including City of Norwalk properties where the Historic Society, where you guys are over there across the street, the green, things owned by the City of Norwalk we didn't include, but other properties. So 2 of them are churches. It's the St. Paul's and First Congregational. Those are both over 30,000 square feet. After that, there's ours here at 3 East Wall Street.
We have no slide there, Craig.
Oh, you're okay. I'm sorry. I've got to reshare the application. Yeah, let's do that.
And just to add to this, these text amendments are based on the regulations in Stamford, which have, thanks to Renee Kahn, have been around for some time, and they're tremendously successful in the retention and rehabilitation of historic buildings.
So these are the 5 properties. It's the 2 churches, as I mentioned. We're here in the middle of the Manor House. The Norwalk Inn complies. Their historic structure is the one on the front left. And then the Collins Funeral Home would comply with that 30,000 square foot criteria. So that's the applicability. We'll talk to zoning about the applicability as well, because it's easy to have it apply to more properties by lowering that lot area threshold. But the tact we've taken with them after conversations is to start slow and put our pants on one leg at a time, and see how it fits before opening up to a few more properties being eligible.
So this, just to comment, this looks good to me because it looks like the only property that someday would actually could take advantage of this would be Collins Funeral Home.
Exactly.
Because the churches aren't going to do anything, and the Norwalk Inn is already done.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
And Collins Funeral Home, that would be fine too. So, okay.
Yep, exactly.
Great. Thanks.
Yep, you're welcome.
What about the old General Putnam building, whatever it's called now,
What's the,
next door?
The
oh, right next door to ours? The other funeral home?
funeral home.
No, it's the community.
On the-
what I-
On the corner of East Wall and,
Property's
Yeah.
not big enough.
Human
Right.
Services Council.
Yeah, the
Right.
lot area is not big enough to qualify for the way we've drafted the incentive rate.
And that's a choice of Steve Kleppen and the zone. If they want to, like Craig had said, if you find other properties, they always have the option to say a property that's 27,000 square feet, they can give them a variance or give some sort of text amendment. But at least we start with something to give the incentive to make this work. I mean, that's what worked at Elmcrest. And Todd, you mentioned Renee Kahn. I worked with Renee Kahn 25 years ago in Stanford under the bonus density. It was one of the first ones. We actually
Jack?
picked up a house from the 1800s and moved it 60 feet and put 27 units behind it. So I've been doing this since I was a kid, and there has to be a financial benefit to everybody because it's so godly expensive to do it right. A lot of guys can do it wrong, but to do it right, it's very expensive.
right. Well, that's why I wanted to mention that, because, this exact same thing, more or less, has been in practice in Stanford for quite a while, and it's tremendously successful.
So, I mean, I'm new to all of this, so I'm kind of just taking this all in. So, I mean, I wasn't a part of the commission when they did the Elmcrest Terrace thing, but for me, I don't see a need to have density when you already have the high density across the street. Why do we need to start bringing in that density right into the historic part? And for me, I understand, I mean, you did a beautiful job at Elmcrest, but personally, I don't see a need to put more density right into the smack dab center of our historic district.
I think, I mean, the premise, go ahead.
I can see fixing the front house, but I don't see a need to add more density when we've got all the development, not even 500 yards down the street.
The premise, again, the basic premise is not to create the density, it's to have the ability to rehabilitate the old home. If you don't have the money to do it, it doesn't get done, and it continues to age and fall into disrepair until some point nothing can be done. And that's the calculus, right? Is that the 15 units help to pay for the restoration.
Well, you're only adding 10. Remember, you're demoing 5. And you need the financial benefit of the other ones to pay for the front. We figure the front house is about $800,000 in restoration.
Yeah, we're going from 16 units today to 26 units tomorrow. So this is not at all the same level of density. Any other questions on the design before we get to kind of why we're here? So we have 2 pending applications with zoning, one for the proposed text amendment, and the other is the included site plan special permit. So one approves the regulations that enable the zoning board to approve the site plan, which is the second application. When we were here before you a couple of years ago, I dug up the referral letter that you folks had voted on and crafted. So I have that if you want to take a look at it. But basically, we would love to have your endorsement both on the proposed text amendment and on the treatment of the front building, including the infill building in the back. And being I chair a board myself without much support or paid staff, and so I have a document file that I can send to Dana if that's helpful as well. That includes that text. Let me see if I've got it here. So this is similar language to what you used a couple of years ago in considering the Elmcrest application, and that's really the ask for tonight. And if you want, I can read it if it's easier than trying to read this on your small screens. Guess that's back to you, Madam Chairman. I think we're done.
Okay, so NHC, have we all had time to read this and review the plans for 3 East Wall Street?
Yes,
Yeah,
How do we want to vote on this or our approval? Let's see. So Eric was first to,
yeah, I move that we pass the resolution.
okay, and I need a second.
Well, I'll speak up. I'll second that one.
Okay, and so we have still on board. Where is it, Mark?
if he stops sharing, it'll be easier to see everybody.
Oh, sure.
Okay,
Thank you.
let's
There you
see.
are.
So we all say hi, yeah? Or nay?
Liz,
Dana, I don't know if I can officially vote since I'm not,
oh, you're not sworn in at the moment, or,
no.
okay. Lisa was just, that was that a yay?
Yay. Aye.
If you're an aye, raise your hand.
Is Barry still here? Oh, Barry had another meeting, that's right, at 8. And Mark,
No.
no, okay. So that's, Liz is not able to vote, 1, 2, 3, but we do have, David, is that a majority vote for, can we vote on that with
Yeah,
5
your
yays?
your vote counts too, Dana, yes.
Okay, yeah, so that's 5 votes for yay.
Thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate it. Dana, I'll send you this doc file to make it easy for you
Okay.
to finalize the correspondence.
Terrific,
Have a
Thank you
great
for all
night.
your comments.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everybody.
thank you.
Thanks, folks.
Bye now.
Okay, so next up is Workforce Partners plans for 138 Flax Hill and 35 Clay Street.
Hi, my name is Rob Persino. I'm representing Workforce Partners out of Norwalk. I just want to say thank you. Thank you all for having us tonight. Our plans, I would say, are fairly similar actually to the Viking guys that went before us, although we're a lot earlier in the process. We own 3 properties up on Flax Hill that we've owned for about 3 to 4 years now. Actually, one of them we recently bought, the other 2, 3 to 4 years. There's about 16 units between the 3 properties now. We were actually recently able to add 2 of the 3 properties to the historic register. They weren't previously on it when we bought the properties, but we're able to add them actually with the help of Todd Bryant, who is actually also on the call. The third one, which we recently purchased, we're actually working on adding to the register now. They're in the D zone, and since we own the properties, we've been trying to find ways to utilize some additional space we have in the existing footprints. And the limitations for us to use that space for apartments has been lot size, really lot width, density in the D zone, and parking restrictions. They're older sites, not a lot of area to park. So we've identified the new D zone historic regulation as something that could potentially help us out with the properties. But really the roadblock for us has been that regulation requires a minimum lot size of 12,000 square feet. And those 3 properties all are slightly below 12,000. The smallest is just a hair over 9,000 square feet. And the other 2 are around 11,500. So we've been kind of back and forth with Steve Kleppen, zoning director, on ways to get around this potential text amendment there. And his kind of biggest concern was the historic commission's you know, what your feelings were on this. So I reached out to Dana a few weeks ago, hoping to get a letter of support for potentially, you know, requesting a text amendment to decrease the minimum lot square footage from 12,000 down to 9,000, so that we could add, you know, utilize that historic regulation, and, you know, make some major facade improvements at those properties, which, you know, I think, you know, is the whole goal of that historic regulation. The properties, you know, could definitely use some facade improvements, have a ton of character. We'd love to do something there. And just by being able to add those few units, really what we're looking for is probably 3 to 5 units between the properties within the existing footprint. So no additions, no major changes, really just utilizing the existing footprint by cutting up some larger units and utilizing some additional space. We've got some large units there, a few 3 bedrooms in the property we most recently bought that we're still in the process of adding to the register. We'd like to, you know, shrink those up and, you know, instead provide some 1-bedroom units. We're right by the steps down to the train station, to the you know, Stono train station there. So a great spot for, you know, young professionals. You know, a lot of the apartments down there that are getting built are kind of on the Class A side. So, you know, tough for young professionals like myself, you know, teachers, doctors, nurses, to really live in those apartments that are getting built. And I think they're kind of getting pushed out. And so we're trying to provide that for them as well. So hopefully, you know, if we can get this text amendment pushed through, we can provide some additional housing for them. So we're hoping to get your approval. I actually drafted up a letter of support that I sent over to Dana a few weeks ago. Very simple and kind of open to tweaks. And also we pulled together, similar to the Viking guys, a list of the properties that would be affected. It's about 20 properties across Norwalk, about half of which I think could really take advantage of the historic regulation. And the other half, not as much. So I can actually tick through that list. If you'd like to see it, I'll share my screen. So first one on the list was over on Berkeley Street. This is actually a clergy house. So it's only a single family right now. Second one on the list is 23 Camp Street, which is currently a 4-unit, built in 1900. This one, I think I would love to see something happen there. If that was, you know, if the regulation was changed. 35 Clay Street, this one we own. It's right on the corner actually of Clay Street and Flax Hill. The steps down to the train station are right kind of here. They're being blocked by this sign. This one we've done some minor facade improvements, but you know, from the start, this property has needed a ton of work. So, you know, we would love to fix this one up, add a little more character, clean it up, you know, strengthen its strengths as part of this process. Next one on the list is 5 Elm Street. The next 2, actually 3, I put on this list because from conversations with Todd, these are actually expected to be added to the register in the coming few months. One of them is state-owned. It's kind of tough to see, but there's, you know, a real old building in the back there. Probably will be knocked down in the future, but this is owned by the state, and I think used as part of the train tracks and train station. Also 232 Ely Ave and 252 Ely Ave, which is a single family. Next on the list is 4 Fairfield Ave, which is, you know, beautiful old Victorian. That, you know, a little tough to tell from the picture, but, you know, looks like it could use some siding repair, some improvements there as well. Would be great to see. 2 Fairfield Ave and 33 Merwin Street. These were a couple of the ones that, you know, didn't stand out to me as something I could really identify major changes being needed here. Although I don't have a ton of experience in historic eye. So next on the list, we're 54 Fairfield Avenue, which is another great historic property, a ton of character. 132 Flax Hill Road. This is second one of our properties, which is not on the register yet, but we're working with Todd to get this one actually added to the register and make some facade improvements here as well. A 138 Flax Hill Road. This is the third one we own. So you can see in the picture here, 132 Flax Hill, which I just talked about, is on the left, 35 Clay Street's on the right, 138's in the middle. So another one we would love to make some changes to and really improve the historic integrity. 197 Flax Hill Road, also a little bit further up on Flax Hill. Seems like has a ton of potential as well. 207 Flax Hill Road, another Victorian. Actually right near another property we're working on right now. 204 Flax Hill Road, which you all may be familiar with, that we're working on actually utilizing this historic regulation, and I've already submitted that one. 32 Harbor Ave, also on the list, along with 31 West Main Street, 33 West Main Street, 31 West Main really stands out to me again as a great Victorian project. And the last one on the list was 14 Arch Street, which to me, I think this one actually could definitely benefit from some historic improvements. It seems like it's lost a lot of that historic integrity over the years. It'd be great to bring that back.
So Robbie, with these projects, are you going to be working with Todd to look at the old pictures to get the exterior facade restored and
Yeah.
then change the interior? Is that the goal?
Correct. So for the three we own, we would work with Todd, and his process is usually to go back and look at those old pictures and try to help us get back to that. And then with the interiors, just all interior improvements. So we'll likely upgrade the heating systems, upgrade the apartments, but all inside the apartments. So we'll maintain a lot of the trim work. We try to maintain as much as possible on the inside where there's that that beautiful trim work you see in some of these old buildings. Try to maintain that. A lot of built-ins, which we actually already have maintained in most of those buildings. 35 Clay Street especially has a ton of built-ins. I think there's actually one window we left, nice, like almost kind of a stained glass. We were able to kind of maintain that there and just clean it up a bit. But, just doing a little bit more of that and just utilize the space we have.
Yeah, I can say that these guys have been doing a really good job, and they've been doing a really good job for apartments that, as Rob said, tend to rent below what the new construction, so-called luxury apartments do. And not to mention, they have a lot more character. I mean, they pay attention.
Okay, I have a question.
Yep.
One of the things I liked about the projects that the Viking guys have done, in order to preserve the integrity of the facades, they've had strictures against the tenants putting in satellite dishes.
Yeah, we've got that.
To really, crap up the outside of the exterior of the building. Are you guys going to be doing the same kind of prohibitions to not have those kind of things hanging off the building?
Yeah, we're pretty particular about that. So we actually have that built into the lease. And anything like that will kind of impede on the facade, we usually limit. Same with AC units. We usually, try to limit it to a certain type that fits with the facade, so it's not being impacted.
Great, thanks.
Yep. So if there was no other questions, I can pull up, if it's okay, I can pull up the text amendment letter. Again, this was very simple. I wasn't sure how much detail the commission wanted included here. So we just drafted up something very simple here, just a letter, really just to Steve Kleppen in the zoning office, just as a first step in the process of the text amendment.
You're still on the Arch Street picture if you're trying to share something.
Oh, sorry. I thought maybe I'll stop sharing and reshare.
It's a nice picture, but
It's good. It's not that good.
All right. Can you see it now?
Yes. Now, in terms of parking, do you allow one vehicle per person? Is there a cap?
We try to, well, the regulation is usually 1.3 spaces per unit. I think we would be probably just a hair below that, probably closer to, I would think 1.1 to 1.2, really is what we'd be requesting as part of the historic submission. And part of that is fueled by the proximity to the train station and the transit-oriented nature of those properties.
Okay.
A bunch of the tenants there just walk right to the train through down that staircase there.
Mhm.
So that's what we'd be going for. That's really been our biggest limitation.
Yeah, because I know parking's tight on Flex Hill.
Yeah, exactly. It's tough there and on Clay Street as well. So
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you, Robbie.
you're welcome.
Okay, so how do we feel about this changing of wording?
So, I'm sorry, can you just clarify again for me what this actually does? This allows you to have more units on this size, on a 9,000 square foot lot or whatever it is?
Yeah, so the way the reg typically works, well, it used to be you had to have a minimum 12,000 square foot lot, and it allows you to get a slight reduction in required parking and some other zoning regulations. So it allows you to basically get away with having a hair less parking and a slightly more density, which just allows you a few more units in exchange for making those facade improvements. But by making this text amendment, it would just allow you to use those same regulations on a slightly smaller property, minimum 9,000 rather than the 12.
But you're not changing the footprint of the building.
Correct. We wouldn't be in our case.
But it could be that the others could
Yeah.
propose, but because it would be all about protecting the facade.
Yeah,
and it would have to be done in the back if it's consistent with the regulations. So
Correct. And they're still beholden to setbacks in the zoning regulations. So a lot of those lots, there's not much space behind the building to build. So they may be able to build something small off the back, but because the lot is so small, they're not going to be able to put, a big 10, 15 unit development back there. Again, I don't know the exact math, but you're probably talking a few units in the back, if anything.
good, thank you.
Thanks.
Hey, Andy, if you're trying to talk there, we don't hear you. Nothing. He usually has to call in to hear sometimes. So maybe what he's doing. Oh yeah, he's just texting me. He was just going to mention that, Yeah, it's the same regulation that's already in place. So the same regulation that Viking utilized for 3 Elmcrest Terrace, and the same one they were proposing in Wall Street, or I think it was East Wall Street. It's that same regulation, just a slight decrease in the minimum lot.
So I guess I'm proposing a change to the text of that amendment. I'm not sure what am I calling it here?
Correct. The historic, D-zone historic regulation. It's actually, I've got the section here, if that's helpful. But yeah, it's the D-zone historic special permit regulation. So changing the 12,000 square foot minimum by decreasing it to 9,000 square feet.
I guess we'd still want to review each case by case, so I'm not sure if we're just kind of okay your designs. I guess everything would have to run by us anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
So NHC, how do we feel about this? How do we want to vote on this? And I guess I need my brain stopped working. What's the word? Ollie?
You need a motion.
A motion, yes.
Yes.
Is Eric making a motion?
Yeah, I move that that we discuss the approval.
Okay, how do we vote on approving this amendment?
Well, moved in second, and then we can have some discussion.
Second. Okay, so we've got Holly, Lisa, Mark, and Liz.
Yeah. Now we can have discussion if we want before we take the vote.
Right. So let's have a little discussion.
My only concern is that the way this approval is drafted in its current form is, I feel it's too bare bones. Not that I'm not in favor of this in concept, but I think that there is too much room for unintended consequences. And I think one of the things I liked about the Viking resolution was it was a little more, I felt like more loose ends were tied up.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not necessarily against this in concept, but I think we need to better define the 4 corners of what we're agreeing to.
Those are 300,000-400,000. That would be.
I would like to see designs and visuals like we've had seen with the others.
And they come down here to the auction and they.
We still need a second motion to talk about this, I guess, or
Gerald Bothwell used to come with his son Mark.
I'll second it just for discussion.
okay, thank you. Holly, any feelings on?
I'm feeling a little like Eric too. I'm not really
Right.
clear. I think it needs more clarification.
Yeah. So it does need to be done on a case-by-case basis, this amendment, I think.
I agree with that.
You guys may have the best interests of everything at heart, but we can't guarantee that some other developer won't find a way to use what you've done in a more malignant fashion.
Can anyone hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I was having some trouble there audio wise, but I just want to just kind of reiterate that the historic regulation that was proposed by Viking for the 3 Elmcrest project, that was approved during that project, and that that regulation exists today. And in fact, we are using that regulation for the 204 Flax Hill project, which you've approved.
Makes sense that they would have to paint.
And so I guess to separate ourselves from what we're asking tonight from individual projects, like the Viking project that just got presented for 3 Wall Street. This is not a project that we're asking for approval or support on. We're asking for a change to the regulation to just widen the floor from 12,000 square feet to 9,000 square feet. The process that exists today for approvals for each of these projects, just like you heard from Viking today, and just like you heard from us at 204 Flax Hill 6 months ago, that process still exists. You have the right to approve or deny every project that comes to you in the current regulation, as you would if this change was made that we're requesting. So I just want to be clear that we're not asking for any other changes to the regulation that exists today, or any other rights that you have to approve or deny individual projects that you currently have today. The only thing we're asking for is support for a change to the change to the regulation to allow properties that are less than 12,000 feet but greater than 9,000 feet of land area to be included as part of that process. Everybody would still have to submit for approval to the historic committee, as well as zoning and building department, to go through their process for each individual project. And we're not bringing any projects right now. If this text change were to be approved by you and by the zoning commission, we would subsequently plan to bring a project to you, which you could still approve or deny as your right at that time. But we can't even get to that step to bring a project because the lot size of the properties we own is less than 12,000 feet. And the way the regulation is written today, we don't even qualify to submit, because our properties are less than 12,000 square feet. So I just want to make sure that was very clear in everyone's mind, that we're not asking for approval on any specific project, and we're not asking for future approval on any project without presenting it to you. We're just asking to change the floor from 12,000 feet to 9,000 feet.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you for that.
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
No problem.
And so these properties we're talking about, the first group you're going to be working on next is 35 Clay and 132 and 138 Flax Hill. Is that correct? What you're planning on? Okay.
We've had some preliminary discussions with Steve Kleppen and about what we might do with those properties. But again, ideally we go through this regulation that we're talking about to improve the historical aesthetic, as well as improving the density and helping us achieve the parking requirement that Robbie mentioned earlier. So that's kind of one of the steps that we're looking at going. So if this regulation were to be able to change to 9,000 feet, then we would in the near future, we would bring a project to you to working with Todd and the same crew that we worked with on 204 Flax Hill. We would bring renderings and drawings and such to you for approval for that project. The other properties that Robbie showed on that list are the other properties that would be affected if the regulation were to change from 12,000 to 9,000 square feet. We don't own the other 17 properties that were on that list. Those people likewise would have to go through the same process. If they decided to want to make changes, they would bring it to you for approval.
Okay.
I see. Thanks. So, NHC board, how do we feel about this text amendment then? Yay or nay? Just I'll go, let's see, alphabetically. Is that Holly?
You're
Just
muted.
unmute.
Holly, where'd you go?
She's there. She's muted.
I'm unmuting. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay.
Get the hang of it. Okay, so just tell me, Pacino or the other guy, what the pluses of setting this in writing is that you are able to work on houses that would fall under less than 9,000 feet, right?
Not less than,
Yeah, less than 12,000 and above 9,000.
Okay, less than so. And out of that, when you're talking about the ability for the parking, what is the parking? How does that change from whether it's 12 or 9?
Well, it doesn't. It still, everything else about the regulation is exactly the same. So in the current way the regulation reads, you get a 25% adjustment on the parking in lieu. So just like Viking is paying to restore the historic nature of the building, and in return for that money, they're adding apartments. Here, we would be using that same bonus, 25% bonus, to, as Robbie indicated, add a couple of apartments. Our plan is to do it within the existing footprint. Their plan is different. And we would also be using that same bonus to get, like Robbie said, you, instead of 1.3, I think you can get 1.1 or 1.2. We would meet that lower parking regulation in return for restoring or preserving elements of the historic nature of those buildings.
So what do we think? Is there a downside to changing that regulation?
I don't see one in particular.
I don't either. David, what do you think?
Well, I would just say, I mean, I'm not telling you how to vote, but the thing is, this is a tool that encourages the owners of these properties to restore the facades. And if I looked at all the properties that they showed us that could be impacted across Norwalk, those are almost all properties that could benefit from something like that.
Right.
The alternative to this is always that they just let the buildings deteriorate, and then they demolish them and they build something new and horrible.
Stewart Avenue, basically.
I don't really see any downside here. There's a little more density they're getting in exchange. But again, all of these look to me like all the addresses of all these properties are within the urban core, which is where you want the density. I mean, if these were in, Cranberry or Silvermine or, the sort of leafy neighborhoods, it wouldn't make sense there, but they're not. These are all in the urban core where you want density and you want more people. And in particular, these guys, I do like that they're, in even the other application, they were all 1-bedroom apartments. I mean, they're going to be attractive to people who aren't going to have a bunch of kids, and increase our costs of schools and all that stuff. It's going to increase property values, which is going to create more property tax revenue to pay for all this, enormous school construction that we're trying to do. The money's got to come from somewhere. It isn't, and it needs to, I'd rather it come from this than come from doubling my property taxes. So that's my opinion, but.
It sounds like there's going to be a lot of interior improvements as well. So upgrading the apartments and whatnot, so.
Yeah, I personally don't see any downside for me, but that's just my opinion.
Thanks, David. Liz, what's your feeling?
I don't know. Can I legally,
Oh,
have
right.
yeah.
Well,
I
David has
agree with David, but I'm not legally allowed to have a feeling.
Okay.
Till I get re-signed in. Yeah.
Re-sworn at. Mark,
there you go.
What's your feeling?
I'm fine with this because it's keeping the facade and it's still within the original footprint, and they're going to try to preserve as much of the interior as possible. So I'm fine with that because it's not adding giant apartment complexes.
Right.
So I'm fine with that.
I'm
in
the end.
Lisa, still here? Lisa, unmute.
Yep, I'm here. I'm okay with it for the same reasons that Mark just said. I just, going forward, anything that's going to be done, I would like to see visual aid and the picture of what it's going to be and how it is on the land.
Right.
To approve.
Okay. So that sounds like a round of yays from us then for this, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
We can't let Eric keep making the motion.
Oh, but yeah, do we
Hey,
have a
just
second?
because we're making are nice ones.
We've already discussed, so now it's just time to vote.
Yeah, so, okay, so I don't have, is
So
it
all in
Robert?
favor?
No. All in favor?
Aye.
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 I don't count, but I would say aye.
Technicality, but yeah, the technicality.
Yeah, no,
Get us.
I agree too.
Holly has, Lisa
I
has a
have
raised
it.
hand.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think that's ayes from all of us. I guess I could do a hand here. Even though it's supposed to be waving to talk, but. Okay, so thank you, workforce.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank-
everyone.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night, guys.
Good night.
Now let's talk about them behind their backs.
Wait, check for a hot mic. This is being recorded, Eric. It's not like the old days. Now I still have on the agenda Lockwood Matthews Mansion, the grant allocation. And do I have any other information on that? No. David, once again,
So, yeah, I think Patsy, I don't know why she dropped off. She probably had something come up, but, so all this is an agreement between the city and the mansion. So this is the project that Patsy talked about, the $7.5 million project to renovate the mansion. $5 million is coming from the state. $2.5 million is coming from the city. And this is it's a agreement between the city and the mansion on how the reimbursement is going to work. That the city and land use is approving it tonight, and it's probably already approved it. So it's, I don't know that you need to do anything about it other than just be aware of it, because it'll go to the council from land use. I'm trying to pull up the
so is that money sort of in our account basically at the moment, or from what I read?
So
maybe-
the way, no, so the $5 million grant is actually to the mansion.
Okay.
And then the $2.5 million is in the city capital account. So they have to agree on, who's going to pay what and how the money's going to flow. And that's what this is. If you'll give me 1 second, I'm trying to pull it up on the land use agenda and I can read it to you. Except it's not working. Oh, here we go. Here we go. I almost have it. Ugh. For some reason, the city website keeps cutting out on me.
What do we have to sign off on that? It's not coming out of our funding, is it?
Just the $2.5 million in our account, but
Oh,
this, it's not specifically about that. It's really about the 5 million and how it flows from the mansion to the city and then they pay the bills. That's really all it is. I don't think we need to do anything.
Yeah.
for the commission. I'm sorry, I can't, this won't open for some reason.
Can Coco pull it up?
No, she can't. She tried. See. It's like, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Yeah. Sorry. But that's what it is. And like I said, it's on land use. It's moving forward. More of an FYI as a courtesy.
All right. I guess we can have a motion to adjourn then.
So one other item of new business. This is just for your information.
Yes.
So when I submitted the operating budget and I started complaining and said, you know, this was the year before COVID, this is the year we were going to push to add a staff person from the city so that we're not the ones doing all the work. And they agreed they couldn't fund a full-time person, but they are going to give us part of a person, a new senior planner that they're hiring in planning and zoning that is going to be the historic commission staff person. And so they will help, they will pull together the agendas and coordinate the meetings and make it easier on us volunteers in terms of running the commission.
That's great.
So
Yay.
that's good news. I'm really happy about that.
Yay.
I'm going to start working on Alan Lowe about the buildings. It's like, you know, I don't want to worry about toilets that don't work at the mansion or the carriage house or whatever anymore. It's like I'm busy, and the city needs to step up and you know, do it. I've done this for 10 years and I can't do it anymore. I don't mind helping. I like the big capital projects, but I don't want to be the one soliciting bids for painting and, you know, stuff like that. I just don't have the time anymore, and it's just not sustainable. So hopefully we'll address that, and then you won't have to listen to me anymore at these meetings, which everybody will be happy about.
I don't know, David, that's my favorite part.
Yeah, right, I'm sure. Oh God, he always another opinion. So anyway, that's all I had. So.
One little note for you, David, regarding the jail.
Yeah.
I saw the email looking for stuff for the jail.
Yeah.
I've got some 19th century handcuffs.
Oh,
Don't ask me
excellent.
what I do with them.
Excellent. We'll use them.
Yeah, I just have to dig
we may actually finish the exhibit before we finish the building. Right, so anyway.
Did you ever find those sidewalk things you were looking for?
Oh, the
lights.
vaults.
Yeah.
Those
yes.
with the help of David and Snew, everything is back in Norwalk. Am I correct, David? It looks like it. They're all back.
Yes, the advantage of wearing multiple hats is that I have multiple people I can call. So I called our general manager at SNU, who happens to just love those sidewalk things. I don't even know what they are, but he got SNU organized and he got 2 trucks and they made 2 trips to Bridgeport and they brought them all back and they're sitting in our laydown yard in front of the power plant.
What
train
sidewalk
station.
things are you talking about?
So I'll back up here, down on Washington Street in front of 134, which is a National Trust, that's not the word I want, building.
National Register.
Their sidewalk vaults were metal grates with little prisms in them that allowed the storage space under the sidewalk to be lit by daylight.
Okay.
So since I was working down there for 3 months from October to January, I happened to notice the call before you dig thing, and then one week I went back and they were mostly missing. So I kind of freaked out. I went back next Monday morning at 7 to catch them. And then I started doing the old telephone game. And luckily David knew that Alan was infatuated with these as well as I. And he quickly got down there and loaded what they were taking out that day onto their truck. And then he was able to go up to Bridgeport and again, get the rest of them. And these are worth, even a scrap, they're worth thousands of dollars.
Oh, cool.
Very interesting for Cityscapes, Richmond, Virginia seems to have them in situ already, and of course in New York City. If you go to the Puck Building, the whole building and steps are made of these sidewalk vault lights, and I find them very interesting.
Did they put them back in the ground, or are they
They're
just?
not going. They could have done that, but we're gonna have to figure out something to do with them to display them.
Why were they
and
removed
restore
in the
them?
first place?
What I probably something to do with lawyers per square mile.
I think Alan said there was some issue with them, a real concern about them failing and, people
Right.
falling through randomly. And
I
that wouldn't be a
think-
good thing, but so.
Yeah, they could have worked it out a little more, but and there's still some spots I've noticed in the sidewalk that are going to collapse, but I'm not an expert on that. But yeah, I think they could have thought this through a little more and rebuilt underneath and then reapplied but anyway, we've got them back anyway, and that will be our little brainstorm to figure out how to display them in some manner.
And Dana, did you hear anything about the house that I talked to you about, the one on Strawberry Hill?
I have not. I guess I should swing by there. I can't remember what part of find out when that house was built. Did you happen to have what it looks like? Is that your neighborhood, or do you?
Yeah, I'm on George Avenue, so I mean, it's
Okay,
literally
right.
my street.
Yeah, because I can't see on Google Earth. And
No,
I just
it's
have it.
covered in trees. I didn't even know what it looked like until they cut them down.
Yeah,
Caught on
I
fire.
never really looked at that at all. And I can't find, I don't know where to look on the city website to find when buildings were built.
Would it be on Zillow?
That's a possibility. Although you notice that a lot of those dates we just presented for were wrong. A lot of times those dates are wrong. So
But you can look up the tax assessor date, has the date on the card. You can look up on the tax assessor real estate parcel lookup. And there's usually a date in it. I would say they're mostly right, not all of them, but probably 20 to 30% are not right. So 70% are right. So there's pretty good chance it's right.
yeah, I know
better
my
than
house
nothing.
has two different
Like the
dates.
Johnson & Johnson vaccine.
Oh,
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, you might be in the right century, but you won't die.
wait,
It's like,
what?
at this point, I'll take that.
Where's my mask? Okay. And again, be on the lookout for teardowns. It seems like some people are circumventing rules. We can let go of some of these Cape type buildings, but I think the builders have not had to stop constructing during this pandemic, so they're taking advantage of people demanding lovely new mansions or something. So keep your eyeballs peeled out there. So I guess thanks for that heads up, Mark, about that house on Strawberry Hill. Oh, and I'm also waiting for do you know if they're going to be doing any work at Narrowmake? Because I know Holly and I had
They're
discovered.
supposed to be adding on a new cafeteria, but I don't think it's going to be any exterior reno now. I think
Okay.
they're going to be staying within the footprint of the building. If anything, there's going to be very little exterior work.
Because that's something I should have been asking like 30 years ago when that was built in '64, and Hal and I did discover, maybe Sharon also, a lot of the people are buried at the Alms House Cemetery, which is all of Norwalk High and Narrowmake property, were never disinterred. So I think that might be about 100 souls that are still under there somewhere.
And where? At
Narrowmake.
Norwalk High School or Narrowmake?
Well, that probably more near Narrowmake because that's where the poorhouse was. but we went through field cards and never saw an exact location on where the cemetery was.
It was
So-
ground penetrating radar.
Well,
Please
it's
don't,
really-
please don't find it.
Yeah, we don't want to find, we just, oh my God.
I'm
I
just,
can't do it
of
more.
course, now that
I
it's all
always
being,
wonder where it is.
yeah, just so you know, in case someone finds some bones, that could be what it is.
Hey, that's how they
Yikes.
turn up. They wash that out of the ground and then,
Yeah.
and then we had to get the state archaeologist, but we'll see. Yeah. Anyhow, I have to sign off.
Ah,
I
yeah.
got to talk to somebody else right now. So,
Okay,
Can I
so,
put it up
I hope I
there?
get to see you guys in person soon.
That would be great.
That house on
Yeah.
Strawberry Hill was built in 1821.
Oh,
Wow.
the house behind the trees, okay.
Yeah,
Hmm.
it's 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. It's about 1,900 square feet.
That's pretty old.
Yeah.
That's old for us, for Norwalk.
1821, okay. What's the address again?
162 Strawberry Hill.
Okay. Mark.
Is that a
Price
red, is that a red
Benson,
house?
right?
No, it's the
What?
one that, you know, if you're right next to Nathan Hale, it's the one behind all the privet.
Okay.
It's very well hidden.
Is there a demo sign?
They have a dumpster there. It looked like there was a sign because it caught on fire back in January.
Ugh,
And it's been sitting vacant.
oh no.
January, you mean January 2020 or 2019?
January 2020. That's what the article
Okay.
was I sent you.
Okay, right.
So in a situation like that, I will just tell you that the building inspector has discretion to just issue a demo permit without notifying us. And he has done that in the past. I don't think intentionally, but if he thinks that a house is like
Why not?
Structurally unsound.
not salvageable or is dangerous, if they come in and apply for it, he'll grant it.
Well, they had a
Just so you
partial
know.
roof collapse, so they probably just said demo it.
Yeah.
Because it
Wow,
was
that's a
vacant.
shame.
It was vacant for a little while. They had a foreclosure sign on it. And then I didn't even know it caught on fire till I had read it in the newspaper.
Yeah, that's really old.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, good eye, Mark. Again, sometimes whether that's benign neglect or intentional neglect.
Right. That was
Okay.
like the house on Osborne. You know, I walked by that house for years because I lived on St. John Street growing up. So that was, you know, it was sad when that greenhouse had to get torn down.
that
Oh, right.
that was neglect. I
Yeah.
don't know that it was intentional. It was just plain neglect.
Right.
It was a terrible shame. That was a great house.
Yeah.
So I think there was some
Okay.
mental illness involved in that one.
Mhm. Things can get out of hand. Anyway,
Yeah.
so how about a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Mark's first adjournment. Okay. I mean, sorry. And a second.
Second.
Okay. So adjourning at 9:10 p.m.
Before we go,
Oh, okay.
welcome to our merry band, Mark. And I gotta say, that looks like a fun wall behind you. You a gamer or a designer?
Those are some drawings that I did as a kid, some stuff that I bought. I'm a big toy collector. So my students get to see my collection when I have class. So
Oh, what do you teach?
I teach history at Roten.
Oh, somehow that's not a surprise.
He
Cool.
deserves a medal just for that.
Yes.
Liz's son works in my house with me.
Right. 6 degrees of separation.
I was texting him. I'm like, oh, I get a meeting with you.
Yeah,
and Mommy
with your
today."
mom.
And he's
And
like,
I agree
"What?"
with your comment about the apartment, so.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, guys. Good night.
All right, have a good one.
Thank you.
Nice to
See you
see
in a couple
you
of weeks.
finally.
Bye-bye.